Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. I am your fantastic host, Inquisitor Gentleman, because that's what you're all here for, is me, for some reason. I don't know why. But what you're really here for is the topic. Otherwise, you wouldn't have clicked on the thumbnail, and you wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be doing this. So, fair enough. Checkmate me, I guess. So, fun topic of me getting to take a dump on Nintendo, because Nintendo is being, well, quite bluntly, stupid. As per usual. Because for whatever reason, the excuse of, well, we're a nationalistic country is used by most people, and my excuse is, so you're not pro-business, you're not pro-consumer, you're not pro-Japanese people because you keep doing stupid stuff. But then again, they have a different culture, and I get that. And I think it's a good thing that they are as pro-Japan as they are about Japan, because it's Japan, and they're Japanese people. Go for it. I have no problems with that at all. However, to behave in a very, what I would say, corrupted manner. In other words, somebody is successful, so you attack them for being successful, despite them being Japanese, and claiming that they're trying to take something from you, which you yourself could have just done better, and then they would never have been competition to begin with. But you're not okay with that because they need to know their place because you're nationalistic, I guess? I don't understand. Like, I had talked to a Japanese person once, and they were basically like, yeah, when you're Japanese, you're supposed to support your Japanese companies, and you're not supposed to show signs of non-support towards Japanese companies because it's seen as unnationalistic because, you know, they're Japanese. I'm like, well, what if you have two Japanese companies? Well, it gets a little iffy in that situation. Now, Japan's the 8th largest corporation / company in Japan. Keep that in mind. And so somebody else is not even punching up. They're just creating something that they like, and Nintendo decides to punch down. Why? I'm assuming corruption, greed, ego is probably the biggest one. Pride, and not pride as in like, I'm happy that we made this wonderful thing that we've made. It's more pride of, we are the best and no one else is allowed to be the best kind of pride. It's very, very different. So let's just jump into it, shall we? Breaking Nintendo patent denied. Palworld lawsuit likely affected. One of the patents for capturing creatures in ball-shaped objects and using them to battle other creatures has been denied by Japan. Is not directly involved in the lawsuit, but at the same time, or in the same patent tree, and its denial could lead to related patents losing validity. Now, this might not seem like a big thing inherently. It might not seem like a crazy concept or whatever. But let me introduce you to another varying point of view. So, Nintendo ball capture and pet battle patent is denied in Japan by the Japanese, and they will likely file to amend their claims to appeal. So Nintendo's probably going to try again in a different way, in a different method, but if Japan's nuking it, why wouldn't the actual patent office in America, which is basically like the big patent office of the world, why would they not also do it? So you might ask, well, what is this lovely little document here? Well, lucky for you, I hunted it down. I hunted for patent office details. So, Japan Patent Office rejects Nintendo application relevant to Palworld dispute, cites games like Ark as prior art after third-party submission. Alright. Context. Nintendo's patent infringement litigation against Palworld maker Pocketpair is still ongoing. Nintendo clings to all sorts of theories to defend its patents against Pocketpair's invalidity arguments, including the position that mods should not count as prior art. It may be part of a PR strategy to distort the reality of who was first to create what, given the Nintendo itself is apparently developing a Pokemon spin-off with Palworld-like elements. Irony. Then it seems to be, we have here links. If you wanted to go into further detail, you can also find this. This is on gamesfray.com. In-depth reporting and analytical commentary on games industry and related regulatory issues, no legal advice. Might be useful for you if you want to deep dive into this even further. What's new? A decision called Office Action made by a patent examiner of the Japan Patent Office, JPO, less than 2 weeks ago, cast serious doubt on the validity of 2 of Nintendo's 3 Japanese patents in suit. This is about the pending application number 2024-031879 that is a sibling of one of those anti-Palworld monster capture patents and the parent of another. It has been rejected on a non-final basis because the patent office, after a third-party submission of prior art, determined that the claimed technique lacked an inventive step. In other words, Pokemon did not invent this. And prior art would, ironically, if I'm correct, so don't nail me to the cross. If I am correct, prior art means that if, say, the people who actually invented the capture method and the summon method through the capturing system in a sphere or whatever, prior art would say, well, since it's been so long since you invented this and you are now coming out with this, there are prior games since then that have also used this mechanic. I believe prior art would still apply to that as well. Prior art references cited by the JPO include various games that predate Nintendo's December 2021 priority date, among them Studio Wildcard's Ark, Capcom Monster Hunter 4, Pocketpair's Craftopia, which is ironically the same people who do Palworld, a Japanese browser game named Kantai Collection, and Pokemon Go. The direct impact. Nintendo now faces the choice between abandoning the embattled patent application or, which is more likely the next step, trying to persuade the patent examiner based on modified patent application with amended claims. Seems logical. They're not going to just give it up and say, oh, we were wrong, we're just going to drown ourselves because blah. Also in the process at the patent office is over, an appeal to specialized court named the Intellectual Property High Court is possible. That's IPHC. The Japanese patent prosecution process has even been described as an endless loop, World Intellectual Property Report. But the fact that the patent examiner is now looking at real-world games as opposed to just patent documents and articles considerably ups the ante for Nintendo. For the avoidance of doubt, even if this Nintendo application fails, there is no direct impact on the Palworld patent case. However, see the next section. Wider ramifications. The non-finally rejected patent application is a key building block of Nintendo's monster capture patenting strategy that took aim at Palworld after its early 2024 release. It has the same parent application as JP7493117 and is the parent JP7545191, both of which Nintendo is asserting against Palworld, the February 6, 2025 Games Fray article. Just like the application that led to the patents in suit, this application was filed shortly after Palworld's release. An issue facing a central member of the patent family is often indicative of validity problems facing other memers. I don't know why they used the word memers, but okay. The overlap between the invalidity contentions and underlying the rejection in Pocketpair's defenses makes it plausible that Pocketpair could be behind an April 2025 submission to the JPO in connection with this Nintendo patent application. A JPO decision, much less a non-final one, is not binding on presiding Judge Motoyuki Nakashima, who is handling the Nintendo v. Pocketpair case. But judges are legally trained and tend to have respect for the determinations made by patent examiners, who are technically trained. Pocketpair might try to point the Tokyo District Court to relevant developments in the JPO. In the U.S., that would be called a request for judicial notice, and can influence decisions. We assume that there will not be a decision of any kind in the infringement case before next year. The proceedings have been delayed, presumably due to what the next bullet point mentions. Nintendo's third patent in suit is also in trouble. They felt forced to seek a modification in the middle of litigation, July 16th, 2025. We will now show you the original information we found on the JPO's website. Here, first, there's a screenshot of the patent family tree as displayed on the JPO's website. So these are the three. Oops, I can't do that. It's a picture. Here's the three patents in question, and they are the parent patents to these ones, which branch off into these ones. You can see the application 2024 031879, the number 2024 059945 below the publication number, stems from an application in 2023 204842 publication number 2024 020611, ultimately granted as JP7505852 and now being used against Palworld, and gave birth to application 2024-123560, publication number 2024-149570, and ultimately granted as JP7545191, which is equally being used against Palworld. As you've probably figured out, for the first 4 digits of these application and publication numbers indicate a year when patent applications are processed on the regular track, as opposed to a company opting for the fast track. It takes 18 months from filing to publication. As the numbers indicate, the first 2 members of this patent family were on the regular track, so the application and publication numbers have different years. But after Palworld's launch, they fast-tracked everything, which is why 2024 applications were still published and some even granted the same year. And here's a little quote over here from the person who made the article. What's happening here is an example of what the game industry at large should increasingly consider, pointing patent offices to relevant prior art during the examination process. That's a form of prophylaxis. It went smoothly except for the 879 application, and now someone, possibly Pocketpair, is mounting resistance. Here's a screenshot of the examination record. It shows an April 9th, 2025 notification of submission of publications and an October 22, 2025 notice of refusal. Here's the examination record and everything. Bunch of submission forms. And then here's finally the, I'll pull this up so you can stare at it for a little bit longer if you wish to. You can also just pause if you like. And finally, here's the JPO's machine translation of the notice of rejection. Notice of reasons for refusal for patents application 2024-031879. Notices. JPO and INPIT are not responsible for any damages caused by the use of this translation. This document has been translated by computer, so the translation may not reflect the original precisely. It shows, or the ... shows the word cannot be translated. Notice of reasons for refusal. Patent application number, Japanese patent application number 2024-031879. Proposed date October 17th, 2025. That's recent. JPO examiner Kazumasa Nakamura 44012D00. Representative Ryo Teramoto and one other person. Applicable provisions, Article 29, Paragraph 2, Inventive Step. This application should be refused for the reasons mentioned below. If the applicant has any opinion against the reason, a written opinion should be submitted within 60 days from the date on which this notification was dispatched, 2 months. Reason 1, Inventive Step. The claimed inventions listed below of this patent's application shall not be granted a patent under the provision of Patent Article 29, 2, for the reason which the claim inventions could have easily been made by persons who have common knowledge in the technical field to which claimed inventions pertains, on the basis of the inventions described in the distributed publication listed below, or made available through the public through electricity telecommunication lines. Interesting word. In Japan or other foreign countries prior to the filing of the patent application. See in particular video, time 223 to 532. Describes an invention relating to a game program in which, in a game called Ark, the relative positional relation between aiming of a blue cross displayed in the center of the screen and the enemy character is adjusted by moving the angle of view. A pod is directed to the aiming direction and is thrown by a human-like player character. A dwarf-like battle character appears from the pod, and a battle between the enemy character and the battle character is started. Cited document 2 describes that an enemy character can be attacked using various weapons in a game called Ark, and when the descriptions of a tool that can be used to cause coma and how to use a bow are combined, it is deemed that cited document 2 describes that a parameter called the coma value is increased by hitting an enemy character with a paralytic arrow, and then when the coma value satisfies a predetermined condition, the enemy character becomes comatose. In other words, it's the fainting instead of the, dead. Then, since the invention described in cited document 1 also relates to a game called Arc, by applying the above-mentioned matters described in cited document 2, a paralytic arrow that causes an enemy character to be in coma is a shot to raise a parameter called coma value. When an coma value is basically all the health you lose. When an event item that progresses an in-game event is shot to a player character in the aiming direction, and the event item hits a field character arranged on a field and on a virtual space, a state parameter of the field character is changed. A pod is thrown to the player character in the aiming direction, a dwarf-like battle character appears from the pod, and a battle between the enemy character and the battle character is started. When a battle character that performs a battle is shot to the player character in the aiming direction, and the battle character is shot to a place where the field character is arranged, a battle between the field character and the battle character is on the field is started. And in such game program, when the enemy character is put into a coma by the paralysis arrow, when the state of parameter of the field character has reached a predetermined value due to the hit of the event item, it is clear that it is possible to perform an operation of causing the player character to throw the pod in aiming direction to start a battle. Regarding claims 2, 6, 10, and 14, the game Arc can attack an enemy character by using various weapons, a plurality of the event items. Arc can cause the enemy character to be in a coma, restrict the movement of the field character in the virtual space by using the paralysis arrow. Claims 4, 8, 12, and 16 cited document, etc. 1 to 3 remarks. In the technical field of games, the battle with enemy characters, it is well known that a predetermined gauge is reduced, the HB one, by winning a battle with a boss, and an in-game event can be cleared by cutting off the gauge. See for example, a method for reducing transport gauge. I think it's just considered CC. And in cited document 3, and therefore in the invention described in cited document 1, a person skilled in the art could have appropriately conceived of adopting the above-mentioned well-known techniques to configure such that predetermined gauge is reduced by defeating the enemy character, and the in-game event can be cleared by cutting off the gauge. In this case, it is merely a design matter that could have been appropriately selected by a person skilled in the art as necessary to configure such that the reduction amount of the gauge is relatively increased by using a predetermined item during the battle with the enemy character. I love corporal speech. The list of cited documents, etc. 1. See HRK Unconsciousness Game Record, Huge Beast Manipulation Free, Subjugation, Ice Titan, Arc Extinction, Chapter 20, YouTube Online, 2020, blah, 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 a bunch of YouTube stuff. See the list of tools that can be used for Arc computer version. Doll's Dream in 4.5 to Tommy Mats. Weird. The Candy Collection. Explanation for Transportation, Gauge, Kantai Collection, Capture Wiki, blah, 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 blah. It's all the stuff for all the different games. All the record for the prior results, capture monitors, how to do it, anesthetic balls, use a large trap, don't forget to weaken it. You get the idea. Target cameras, basically it counters a whole bunch of their stuff. Office of User Experience, Kazumasa Nakamura, information, do not harass that person in any shape or form. So yeah. So the next thought that comes to this, what next? So Nintendo's patent relevant to the Pal World case has been rejected by Japan's Office for Lacking Originality. What happens next? It's not necessarily directly relevant, but it is potentially sub-relevant. The sub-relevancy being that if you can take these patents and wipe them away because it's too broad or it's got prior art or whatever the case might be, that could possibly affect the ones in the actual lawsuit. So this leaves us in a very weird position because it's either going to be rejected or it's going to be strengthened or it's going to be accepted. Those are really the only options that are available. Unless you can think of something else. Leave a comment if you can think of something else. Japan's patent office rejects key Nintendo patent claim, potentially strengthening Pocketpair's defense in the Pal World dispute. When you purchased it, I don't care about that. So Nintendo's ongoing legal campaign against Pal World developer Pocketpair has hit another roadblock. A patent in Nintendo's Monster Capture family, one that sits right between two patents, currently being asserted in the Tokyo District Court, has been rejected by the JPO, Japan Patent Office. The decision cites a lack of inventive step that points directly to older games such as Ark, Monster Hunter 4, Craftopia, Kantai Collection, Pokemon Go itself as examples of prior art. I mean, imagine pointing to Pokemon Go, your own property. That's funny. For Xbox players following this saga, and especially fans who jumped into Power World on Xbox Game Pass, this new twist adds even more weight to Pocketpair's defense. It reinforces the argument that Power World isn't necessarily copying Nintendo, but rather is inspired by and builds upon decades of established game mechanics, which is the correct answer. And this is the same thing as, like, even with things like the Nemesis system from Shadows of War, Shadows of Mordor. I love that system, but the fact is that they locked it behind something that should never have been locked. Patents should not be indefinite in this particular sense, because if somebody else is like, I can make this work in a newer sense, I can even tweak it or whatever. Well, in their sense, the company that made, I think it was Monument Games or something, when they got shut down, the patent's still there. Well, if they're not there, then why is the patent still locked on? It should be able to be used by anybody at this point. And the point is that the innovative aspect is that you're not making just another Shadow of War and using the exact same thing and thus just plagiarizing it. What you're doing is you're making an entirely new game, and in that new game, it has an entirely different layup for how things can operate. Imagine if you had the Nemesis mechanic in Grand Theft Auto, or Red Dead Redemption, or preferably Red Dead Redemption 3, or any of the other games, and say like, okay, well, what if we had that in Power World, or even Pokemon, where you beat off Team Rocket, but Team Rocket's like, I'll never forget this, you'll regret it. And then they come back, and it has a unique system because it's not just a pre-programmed system. Now it's they pop up at random points and you have to fight them off. That could be an interesting mechanic. We can't have that because some moron said, this is a patent stamp. And then now they closed the company that had that actual patent. So now it's just sitting there for 50, 70, 90 billion years, like whatever the possibility is. It's stupid. And they show here the stuff. The latest report from Fray, which is what we already covered, breaks down the significance of this patent rejection in relation to the Pocketpair case. If you look at the official JPO patent family chart shown above, you can see how interconnected these filings are. The newly rejected 2024-031879 application descends from Nintendo's 2023 filing, JP 7505852, which has already been granted and is one of the patents cited in Nintendo's lawsuit against Pocketpair. Meanwhile, patent 2024-123560, JP 7545191, branches off another granted patent also being used in court. That means this isn't some irrelevant side filing. It's literally sandwiched between two patents central to the litigation. If the JPO finds that one member of the patent family lacks originality, it raises questions about the others. And as Fray notes, the sibling parent structure makes the 2024-031879 rejection potentially significant, potentially being the key word there. The same reasoning, lack of an inventive step, obviousness based on prior art, could easily apply to the related patents Nintendo was wielding in court. Pocketpair's fingerprints might be on the prior art submission. JPO's records show that the third-party submission was made earlier this year, introducing prior art that led to this rejection. While the JPO doesn't name who made it, the timing aligns with Pocketpair's known strategy in its April 2025 court filing of similar evidence. In fact, Fray's earlier coverage revealed that Pocketpair's legal team has already submitted an extensive list of games from Ark and Tomb Raider to Zelda, Titanfall 2, Rune Factory 5, all to demonstrate that Nintendo's claimed mechanics existed long before Power World. And a lot of those are under some form of Nintendo publishment. You can read our breakdown of that filing. I don't really care. Pocketpair even cited mods like Pixelmon for Minecraft and Nukamon for Fallout 4 as prior art, arguing that player-created content is also part of the shared creative ecosystem that predates Nintendo's claims. Interestingly, Nintendo's own argument earlier this year tried to claim that mods shouldn't count as prior art, as an unusual position that drew criticism for trying to limit what qualifies as publicly known technology. This is a shot of Pokemon in Power World, I believe. The JPO's decision doesn't directly determine the outcome of the Tokyo District case. That's a separate process, but it could influence it. Judges often respect the technical findings of patent examiners, even if they aren't legally bound by them. In this case, the rejection undermines Nintendo's claim that its patent protect truly original gameplay ideas. When Japan's own patent authority says otherwise, the argument loses credibility faster. The ruling also puts pressure on Nintendo's third-party patents in suit, which, according to previous reports, has already been modified mid-litigation, a sign that Nintendo is getting desperate. What may also be relevant is that it was recently leaked that Nintendo may be working on its own Pokemon spin-off, featuring gameplay elements similar to Palworld Survival style. If this turns out to be true, it could explain why Nintendo is pushing so hard to secure broad control over mechanics that suddenly look marketable again. So one way you could look at it is Nintendo could, which is the initial thought, is that they felt threatened by Palworld, saying, well, if they're doing so well, this could threaten our Pokemon IP. And Nintendo has a stake in Pokemon. It's like a 1/3 shareholder. Or a 1/3, yeah, because it's Pokemon Company, Game Freak, and Nintendo. So if they feel threatened by this, it stands to reason that they're not going to want Pocketpair to succeed, because then Pocketpair might make more Pokemon-like games, and I would assume probably do them better than Pokemon Company, Game Freak, and Nintendo. Because it technically doesn't take very much to do better than those games, because those games are severely underdone, and they put very little into them because they know they'll get a lot more out of it, because, again, they're more concerned with the profits rather than the long-term profits they would get for building up such a following. Because they have a cult following, but in the wrong type of cult mentality, versus a cult following from people being loyal to you because you always kept them as your main priority. So this just happens to be the way things are. But the second way could be that they saw how successful Palworld was, and then were like, ooh, but what if we took over that department? And then they used Pokemon as a excuse, we'll say, to take over that. But what happens next with Nintendo and Palworld? Well, Nintendo has 60 days from the October 22nd notice to respond. Nintendo can submit amendments to the patent claims or argue why the examiner's conclusions are wrong. If that fails, Nintendo can appeal, which would potentially drag the process into 2026. The main lawsuit against Pocketpair continues at the Tokyo District Court, but is getting increasingly shaky. If more of Nintendo's patents face rejections, it could drastically weaken their case, which is something they probably didn't think about when they started just chucking patents at them. Because they're thinking, oh, well, we're going to win all these hands down. And then they're like, oh, shoot, we're not winning these. But whatever happens about this development shows that Pocketpair's defense strategy, built on citing prior games like Ark and Monster Hunter, is paying off. So, what does this mean? Well, it means Pocketpair's not just full of crap, and they're not just copying or whatever. They're like legit making a defense, and because of that legit defense, they could be one of the first companies to actually succeed against Nintendo, where Nintendo is notorious for going after people only when they know they can actually do something against them. So, if this changes and Nintendo loses, it's not like they're going to lose everything after that or anything like that. But it will open the door to basically say, no, Nintendo, you don't get to just control everything in the industry and then everybody has to go through you, because it sounds like that's what you're trying to do through the sneaky back door, so that when PlayStation and Xbox, even though Xbox probably won't exist that much longer, or Steam or anybody else comes up and wants to make something, it's like, no, you have to go through us. We're the entertainment guys based in video games, because technically speaking, Sony and Xbox are not. They're not entertainment companies. They're companies that have entertainment sections or subsections. Steam's an entertainment company, like Nintendo. And Steam might have a bit of a shot at pushing back at Nintendo if Nintendo tries to encroach on the entirety. Now, Steam doesn't have any reason to directly go after this particular lawsuit. But if Nintendo starts trying to lock things to Nintendo, or fighting against maybe the Steam Deck 2, or a home-based Steam Deck, then I'm pretty sure Steam will jump in on that and just absolutely slap the ever-living crap out of them, because that's not how that works. And if anything, monopolization would basically cancel you just instantly. Like, bye-bye. So, I like Nintendo. I've liked Nintendo for a long time. I like the fact that they have physical... I mean, come on, guys. I've got freaking Breath of the Wild Master Edition. I've got Tears of the Kingdom Master Edition. I've got the soundtracks. I've got the Pokemon games. I've got the books. I've got Switch. Whoop. Switch. I even have a Switch 2 game that I have not opened because I don't have a Switch 2, ironically. But it's a game that I got that was a special edition of it. Why not? I've got Switch game. I've got Nintendo. Sorry, I have Nintendo games for 64. And that's just over here. I have my entire game stash over there. I have like a big stack of Pokemon games. I mean, heck, I'll just do this. So I've got this full. I've got this full. And I'm starting to fill this one up. So I obviously like Nintendo. I like the stuff. I even went out, sold my Nintendo Switch original, and got an OLED, the Tears of the Kingdom OLED. Specifically because I wanted something that runs a little faster, and I have a lot of Switch 1 stuff, so I need to have a Nintendo Switch 1 because not all games are inherently going to work on the Nintendo Switch 2, unfortunately. But the fact that Nintendo is doing what they did with the Nintendo Switch, which makes me not much of a fan in that regard. Maybe one day when the Nintendo Switch 2 shows an actual reason for it to be valid to even get, maybe then I'll pick one up if it's affordable and not stupid outrageously overpriced, because that's typically what they are. Then maybe I can finally crack this sucker open and actually play it. But I like physical media, so I take these physical media things and say, I am going to have this even when the Nintendo Switch 2 is like super old, like it's retro at that point. I'll be able to play this stuff because it'll be cheaper and whatever. And I don't have to necessarily support Nintendo, kind of a thing, and their behavior like that. Now, if they come out and they apologize for everything, which I don't see happening, they're very proud as a company, and not in a good way. And they think higher of themselves than they really should. But assuming that they actually change their behavior or whatever the case might be, I will be more apt to wanting to give them my money again. Now, I still collect Nintendo Switch stuff, but usually from a third party. It's not directly from Nintendo per se. I try to get things however I can get them, because sometimes you just can't get them because they're sold out and people aren't selling them or whatever. But that's more or less my goal, because I want to be able to have the physical media, so when everything hits the fan, I can say I can still play it. I can still participate in it. I'm a really big fan of physical media, if you didn't notice. And again, this is a very small percentage of what I have. I have more that way. I have more everywhere. But that being said, I would love for them to snap out of it and then just be an entertainment company. And you could say that Miyamoto's really nice. Yes. Can you say these people are doing their best? Sure. Does that mean that every decision they make is good? No. No. So I want them to snap out of it. I want them to come back to the light, so to speak, and be pro gamers, not just Japanese gamers. And I'm not saying, I definitely don't want them to change their processes to make it Western satisfactory in that regards. I want them to remain doing what they do in Japan, but just translate it to English, translate it to German, French, whatever flip is out there, at least English. And I want them to be able to just put that out there. But they're like, no, we think of Japan first. I'm like, yes, but you could sell more. And if this is all about profits because Pocketpair is stepping on your toes in your profits, well, if you made better games, well, you can't say that about us. That's anti-Japanese. I'm like, no, you trying to go after Pocketpair for doing better than you is anti-Japanese. It's also anti-market, but you're probably not pro-free market. You're probably more communistic in that regard, where it's, we are the ones in charge. It's like, oh, I like my game. You mean our game, comrade? Because they can just brick your freaking Switch because they don't like how you homebrew your Switch. That's all stupid stuff. None of this should have been covered. None of this should be the way it is. If you want to say, no, you have to log in, and if you log in and change anything like cheating wise, go for it. brick the snot out of them. But you can't say that just because I made a modification to my Switch and customized how it operates and everything, that has nothing to do with you, Nintendo. But guess what? They think it does. Very authoritarian of them, which I'm not particularly fond of. So maybe something will change. Probably won't. Unless somebody buys out Nintendo or something, which good luck affording that. So, what are your guys' thoughts? Do you think Nintendo has a chance at this lawsuit? Do you think Pocketpair has a chance at this lawsuit? Which side do you want to win? Do you want Nintendo to win? Do you want Pocketpair to win? If so, why? Do you think that Nintendo can get away from their kind of recent sleazebagness where they became worse than Sony, which is amazing because Sony's pretty bad? Do you think they can change that and come back to the light? Do you think there's some hope, or do you think we can possibly get Pocketpair to be so successful that nothing Nintendo does can push them back down? Do you think patents should be all of time? Should they be for a select time? Should they be something that have several heavy requirements on you to keep them running? For example, the Nemesis system, it has to have a game made within, a couple years of the time frame, or it has to have an active payment of so much money every so often to maintain the patent. And if so, it has to be high enough for it to be painful if they don't release something. Because if you're just holding on to a patent indefinitely and nobody ever gets to use it, that's not innovative. That's anti-innovation. Do you think that should be a thing? Whatever it might be, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a like, comment, share, whatever it is you'd like to do to support this channel. I appreciate you so much. Check the description below for any socials, Twitter/X or Discord. Love to have you there. Discord is the easiest way to hang out with me and other people from the channel that like the same content as you, and also play games together. I got tons of memes for you, so there's always that. And also you can kind of vote on what you would like to see me play next in one of my live streams. And also check out the content creators that I think are fantastic and that you should support in some shape or form if you like them. I'm not going to force you to like them. And also businesses that support anti-censorship and also our little corner of the YouTube worlds or the interwebs in general. But I'm not sponsored, so just check them out because I think they're good to work with. So thanks, everybody. And remember, my friends, walk in the light.